The gun was still warm in his hand when he looked at me for the first time in 6 months. Really looked at me. Blood stained his white shirt. But his eyes were only on me, dark and desperate and filled with something that looked like fear. Behind him, 3 men lay unconscious on the warehouse floor. "Are you hurt?" His voice cracked like breaking glass.
You came for me.
I shook my
almost
head,
lost you.
unable to speak, because the man who'd never touched my hand was now gripping my shoulders like I might disappear. The man who'd slept in a separate wing of our mansion was now close enough that I could feel his heart pounding through his chest, and all it took was seeing another man's hands on me to wake him up. Welcome to our channel. You are special. Before we continue, please hit that like button and subscribe. It truly helps us grow and create more stories like this for you. Your support means everything to this channel. 6 months earlier, I stood in my father's Lagos office, staring at the man who would become my husband through a business arrangement I'd never wanted. Kwon Taeyang didn't look at me once during the entire meeting. His attention stayed fixed on the contracts spread across the mahogany desk, his expression carved from ice as he discussed territory agreements and profit margins with my father. "The marriage solidifies the alliance between our organizations," my father said in Yoruba, assuming Taeyang couldn't understand. "She's beautiful, educated, and most importantly, she'll give him legitimacy in the African markets." I wanted to scream that I was sitting right there, that I could hear every word, that I was a person, not a bargaining chip. But I'd been groomed for this my whole life, to be the perfect daughter of a powerful man, to smile and stay quiet while men decided my future. Taeyang signed the final document without hesitation. His hand moved with cold precision, and when he finally glanced up at me, his dark eyes swept over my face with the same interest someone might show a piece of furniture. No warmth, no curiosity, nothing that suggested he saw me as human. "The wedding will be in 2 weeks, my father announced. "Sophia, you'll move to Seoul immediately after. 2 weeks to prepare for a life with a stranger. 2 weeks before I became Mrs. Kwon, wife of the most dangerous man in Seoul's underground world." The wedding was a spectacle. Hundreds of guests, flowers that cost more than most people's homes, security everywhere because half the guests were criminals and the other half were worse. I wore a custom gown that made me look like a princess in a fairy tale, except there was no magic here, only cold calculation. Taeyang stood at the altar in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than a car. When I reached him, he didn't smile, didn't show any emotion at all. We exchanged vows in front of people who'd kill each other under different circumstances. And when the officiant said he could kiss the bride, Taeyang leaned in. For one desperate second, I thought this might be real, that the kiss might mean something. He pressed his lips to mine for exactly 1 second, cold, formal, meaningless. Then he pulled back, turned to face the crowd, and that was it. My first kiss with my husband felt like signing a business contract with my mouth. The reception was worse. Taeyang disappeared into conversations with dangerous-looking men while I sat at the head table alone, smiling for photos and pretending this was normal. His mother, an elegant woman with steel in her eyes, approached me once. "He's not what you expected," she said in perfect English, studying my face. "None of this is." "I didn't expect anything," I lied. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Expectations lead to disappointment. Taeyang is complicated. He'll provide for you, protect you, but don't expect more. Don't expect love," she meant. "Don't expect affection or warmth or any of the things a wife might hope for. Just expect to exist in proximity to a man who saw me as a strategic asset." Seoul was beautiful and terrifying. The mansion Taeyang owned sat in the hills overlooking the city, surrounded by walls and security systems that made it feel more like a fortress than a home. It was all marble and glass and cold elegance, every surface polished to perfection, every room designed to impress rather than comfort. "Your rooms are in the East Wing," Taeyang said as we entered. Not our rooms, your rooms. He led me through hallways that seemed to stretch forever until we reached a door. Inside was a bedroom suite larger than my childhood home, king bed with silk sheets, walk-in closet already filled with designer clothes I'd never picked out, a bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. If you need anything, staff are available, Taeyang continued in that flat, emotionless voice. Meals are at 7, 1, and 8. I have business most days, so you'll have the house to yourself. Where do you sleep? I asked, even though I already knew the answer would hurt. West wing, opposite side of the house. He checked his watch, already dismissing me. I have a meeting. Welcome home. He left before I could respond, his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway until they faded completely. I stood in my beautiful prison and realized my father had sold me to a ghost. Taeyang was physically present but emotionally absent, and this was my life now. The first month was the loneliest of my existence. Taeyang left before dawn and returned after midnight. We crossed paths maybe twice a week, usually in the kitchen when I couldn't sleep and came down for tea. He'd nod, say, "Good evening," and disappear with whatever food he'd come for. I tried. God, how I tried. I learned to cook Korean food, spent hours watching videos and practicing until I could make perfect kimchi jjigae, bulgogi, and japchae. I'd leave covered dishes in his study with little notes. He'd eat them. The empty containers would reappear in the kitchen, but he never acknowledged them, never thanked me, never even said the food was good or bad. I dressed beautifully, wearing traditional Korean hanbok sometimes, hoping he'd notice the effort. He didn't. His eyes would pass over me like I was wallpaper. I tried learning Korean, practicing phrases to surprise him, but the few times I attempted conversation in his language, he'd respond in English and walk away. Every night, I lay in my enormous bed in the East Wing and listened to the silence. Sometimes I'd hear him moving around in the West Wing, footsteps, a door closing, water running, and I'd wonder what he was thinking, if he ever thought about me at all, if he felt even a fraction of the loneliness crushing my chest. The staff felt sorry for me. I could see it in their eyes. The housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, an older woman who'd worked for the Kwon family for decades, would find excuses to sit with me during tea. He wasn't always like this, she said one afternoon, pouring hot water over delicate leaves. Before his brother died, he was different, smiled more, laughed sometimes, but after... What happened to his brother? Mrs. Kim's face closed off immediately. That's not my story to tell. But understand, Sophia, that the man you married is carrying grief heavier than you can imagine. It's made him hard. Hard didn't begin to cover it. Taeyang was granite, ice, steel, every cold metaphor applied, and I was slowly freezing to death in his presence. 3 months in, I stopped trying. Not dramatically, not with any big decision, but I just gave up. I stopped cooking special meals, stopped dressing up, stopped waiting for him to come home. Instead, I focused on survival, on finding ways to exist in this beautiful cage without losing myself completely. I started taking boxing lessons at a private gym the security team had cleared. Physical violence felt good when emotional violence was constant. Every punch into the bag was every frustration. Every rejection I couldn't protest, every lonely night I couldn't change. My trainer, Marcus, was from South Africa, and having someone who understood the complexity of being African in this world made everything slightly more bearable. He pushed me hard, never went easy, and I appreciated the honesty of physical exhaustion. At least this pain had a purpose. You're getting stronger, Marcus observed after I'd gone 5 rounds without stopping. Whatever you're fighting, you're not backing down. Maybe I'm just angry, I said, unwrapping my hands. Anger properly channeled is powerful. He handed me water. Just make sure you're directing it at the right target. I wasn't sure who the right target was. Taeyang for being emotionally unavailable, my father for arranging this marriage, myself for being too weak to walk away. The security detail assigned to me became my constant companions. Everywhere I went, at least 2 armed men followed at a discreet distance. First, it felt suffocating, but eventually I barely noticed them. They were professional, silent, and absolutely deadly. I'd seen enough in my father's world to recognize killers when I saw them. The head of my detail was named Ji-hoon, a quiet man in his 30s who took his job seriously. Mr. Kwon's orders are clear, he explained the first day. Your safety is our priority. Nothing happens to you. Does he check in? I asked, pathetically hoping for some sign Taeyang cared. Does he ask about me? Ji-hoon's face was carefully neutral. He receives daily reports. So he knew where I went, what I did, who I spoke to. He just didn't care enough to acknowledge me directly. I was a possession he needed to maintain and protect, nothing more. 4 months into our marriage, Taeyang's organization held a charity gala, a front for networking between criminals who pretended to be respectable businessmen. I was required to attend as the dutiful wife, to smile and look beautiful and legitimize his operation with my presence. I wore a midnight blue gown that hugged every curve, my hair swept up to show my neck and shoulders. Diamond earrings Taeyang had given me, or rather that his assistant had delivered without a note, sparkled at my ears. When I descended the main staircase, ready for the car to take us to the event, I saw Taeyang waiting in the foyer. For 1 second, just one, his eyes widened. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation, but it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. His expression smoothed back to his usual blank mask. You look appropriate, he said, and my heart cracked a little more. Appropriate, not beautiful, not stunning, not anything that suggested I was a woman he found attractive, just appropriate for the role I needed to play. The gala was held at one of Seoul's most prestigious hotels. Hundreds of people in expensive clothes making small talk while servers circulated with champagne and tiny, perfect appetizers. Taeyang stayed within arm's reach, playing the attentive husband for the cameras, but never actually touched me. Not my hand, not my back, not even accidentally as we moved through the crowd. Mrs. Kwon, what a pleasure, a man approached, speaking English with a European accent. Anton Volkov, I do business with your father occasionally. Russian Mafia. I recognized the name from conversations I'd overheard growing up. Volkov was dangerous, unpredictable, and currently looking at me like I was something he wanted to acquire. Mr. Volkov, I kept my voice polite but cold. Your husband is a lucky man, Volkov continued, moving closer than necessary. Such beauty and elegance. Tell me, do you enjoy Seoul, or do you miss Africa? I miss many things, I said carefully. Volkov laughed, a sound without humor. I'm sure. A woman like you, trapped in a arranged marriage to a man rumored to be made of ice. What a waste. I felt Taeyang tense beside me, though his expression didn't change. Volkov, he said quietly, voice carrying a warning. Relax, Kwon. I'm simply appreciating what you apparently cannot. Volkov's smile was sharp. If you ever tire of being ignored, Mrs. Kwon, I know how to treat a beautiful woman properly. We're done here, Taeyang said, finally placing a hand on my lower back. The first time he'd touched me in months and guiding me away. But the touch was to move me, not comfort me, not claim me, just to relocate an object. The moment we were out of Volkov's sight, his hand dropped, back to not touching, not acknowledging, not caring. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing space from the pretense. Inside the luxurious lounge area, I leaned against the counter and stared at my reflection. Beautiful dress, perfect makeup, dead eyes. I looked like an expensive doll. The door opened and another woman entered, young, beautiful, Korean. She froze when she saw me, recognition flashing across her face. You're his wife, she said in accented English. Do I know you? I'm Mina. She said it like I should understand the significance. When I didn't respond, she continued. I was with Taeyang, before you, before his family forced him to marry for business. My stomach dropped. Oh, he loved me, Mina said, and there was pain in her voice. really loved me. We were planning a future together. Then, his family said no, that he needed to marry someone who could expand their empire, and suddenly I wasn't good enough. I'm sorry, I whispered, meaning it. We were both victims of powerful men and their plans. Are you? Mina studied me with sharp eyes. You got everything I wanted. His name, his home, his protection. The only thing you don't have is what I had. His heart, and you never will, because he already gave it to me. She left before I could respond, leaving me alone with that truth. Taeyang had loved someone, was maybe still in love with her, and I was the replacement he'd been forced to accept, which explained so much about the walls between us. When I returned to the gala, I found Taeyang exactly where I'd left him, accepting congratulations and making deals with criminals in expensive suits. I stood beside him for the rest of the night, playing the role of wife, dying inside with every second that passed. At home, Taeyang went straight to his wing without a word. I went to mine, stripped off the beautiful gown and expensive jewelry, and cried for the first time since arriving in Seoul. Not because I loved Taeyang, I didn't even know him, but because I finally understood that I never would. His heart was locked away, given to someone else, and I was just the woman his family had forced him to marry. The crying woke something in me, though, something hard and necessary. If I was going to survive this marriage, I needed to stop hoping for affection I'd never receive. I needed to build my own life, find my own purpose, and stop waiting for a man who'd made it clear he didn't want me beyond the legal bond between us. So I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I built walls of my own. 5 months in, I started going out more, not to parties or social events, but to places where I could be myself. African cultural centres where I could speak my languages and eat food that tasted like home. Art galleries where I could appreciate beauty without having to be on display. Bookstores where I could lose myself in stories of people whose lives made more sense than mine. Marcus invited me to his birthday dinner at an upscale restaurant, and for the first time, I accepted an invitation that had nothing to do with Taeyang's world. It felt like rebellion, like reclaiming something stolen. Ji-hoon and his team were there, of course, sitting at a nearby table, watching everything, but I ignored them and focused on enjoying the evening. Marcus had invited other trainers and their partners, and the conversation was easy, genuine. People asked about my life and actually listened to the answers. They laughed at my jokes and shared their own stories. It was normal in a way my life hadn't been since leaving Lagos. This is nice, I told Marcus over dessert. Thank you for including me. You're always welcome, he said warmly. You're part of the gym family now. We take care of our own. Family. The word struck something deep. I had no family here. Taeyang certainly didn't consider us family, and his relatives treated me like an obligation. But maybe I could build found family, people who chose to care about me. As we were leaving the restaurant, laughing about something ridiculous someone had said, I felt someone watching. I turned and saw Taeyang standing across the street beside a black car, his eyes locked on me with an intensity I'd never seen before. Our gazes met, and for the first time in months, I saw emotion in his face. His jaw was clenched, his hands fisted at his sides, his entire body radiating tension. He looked angry. No, not angry. Something else. Something darker and more complicated. Marcus touched my elbow, asking if I was ready to go, and I watched Taeyang's eyes drop to that touch, watched his expression turn to stone. Then he climbed into his car and drove away without a word. That night, I lay awake wondering what I'd seen in his face. Whatever it was, it had been real, raw, the first genuine emotion he'd shown since our wedding day. But what did it mean? And why did it only appear when he saw me with someone else? The next morning, everything changed. I came down for breakfast to find Taeyang sitting at the dining table, something that never happened. He was always gone before I woke up, but there he was, dressed in all black, coffee cooling in front of him, eyes fixed on me as I entered. "Good morning," I said carefully, unsure how to handle this break-in pattern. Sit down. His voice was flat, but there was an edge to it. We need to talk. I sat, my heart rate picking up. Was he angry about last night? Did he care that I'd been out with Marcus? You've been training at the gym for 2 months, Taeyang said. It wasn't a question. Yes, your security team knows where I am at all times. And this trainer, Marcus, you're close with him. There it was. He was bothered by Marcus. I should have felt vindicated, should have enjoyed having some power in this dynamic. But instead, I felt tired. Marcus is my trainer and my friend, I said evenly. Nothing more. But even if it was more, would you care? We're married on paper, Taeyang. You've made it clear that's all this is. His eyes flashed. You're my wife. Am I challenged, leaning forward. I live in your house. I wear your name, but I'm not your wife in any real sense. You don't touch me, don't talk to me, barely acknowledge I exist. So forgive me if I seek human connection elsewhere, because I'm dying of loneliness in this beautiful prison you've locked me in. Taeyang's face was a storm of emotions now, the ice finally cracking. You think I don't... He stopped, jaw working. It's complicated. Then explain it to me. Tell me about Mina. Tell me about your brother. Tell me anything real, because I can't keep living like this. I can't keep being nothing to you. The mention of Mina made him flinch. You met her. At the gala. She told me you loved her, that your family forced you to end it, that I'm the obligation you were stuck with instead. Taeyang stood abruptly, turning away from me. His shoulders were rigid, his hands braced on the table. For a long moment, he said nothing, and I thought he might just walk away like he always did. But then he spoke, voice rough with emotion. I'd never heard from him. My brother Taewon was killed 6 months before we met, ambushed by rival organization members who wanted to send a message to my family. He died in my arms. His last words were telling me to protect what matters, to not let revenge consume everything. My chest ached. I'm sorry. After he died, I shut down, focused only on business, on making our organization stronger so we'd never be vulnerable again. Mina wanted me to leave this life, to run away together, to choose her over everything, but I couldn't abandon my family's legacy, not after losing Taewon, so my parents arranged our marriage. And I agreed because it made strategic sense, because nothing else mattered anymore. He turned to face me, and I saw pain in his eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, Sophia, but I couldn't be what you needed. I was too broken, too focused on survival, and I thought keeping distance was kindness, was better than pretending I could be a real husband when everything inside me was dead. But you're not dead, I said softly. Last night, when you saw me with Marcus, you felt something. I felt... He stopped, struggled with the words. I saw another man touch you, make you smile, give you the attention I've denied you, and I wanted to destroy him, wanted to burn down the whole restaurant and everyone it except you. My breath caught. That's jealousy. That's me realizing what a fool I've been. Taeyang moved closer, stopping just out of reach. I watched you try for months. The food, the clothes, the patience. You gave me everything, and I gave you nothing. I told myself it didn't matter, that you'd adjust, that this was just business. But last night, seeing you happy without me, I understood what I've lost, what I'm losing. What are you saying? My voice shook. I'm saying I want to try, really try. I can't promise I'll be good at this, can't promise I won't mess up, but I want to be a real husband to you, if you'll let me, if it's not too late. I stood slowly, studying his face. The walls weren't completely down. I could still see the careful control, the fear of vulnerability, but there were cracks now, real, genuine cracks that showed the man underneath. I can't go back to how things were, I said firmly. I won't be ignored and dismissed while you figure out your feelings. If we do this, if we try, it has to be real. Both of us, all in. Both of us, he agreed. All in. He reached for my hand, hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he had the right. I let him take it, feeling his warm fingers wrap around mine. It was the first time we'd held hands since our wedding, and the contact sent electricity through my whole body. "I don't know how to do this," Taeyang admitted, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "How to be what you need." "We'll figure it out together," I said. "That's what partners do." He pulled me closer, slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted, but I didn't. I let him draw me into his arms, let him hold me against his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as mine. "I'm scared," he whispered against my hair, "of failing you, of losing myself in this, of caring too much and having it destroyed." "I'm scared too," I admitted, "but maybe we can be scared together." Taeyang pulled back just enough to look at my face, his eyes searching. Then, with a gentleness that made my throat tight, he cupped my face with both hands and kissed me. Not like at our wedding, this kiss was real, deep, filled with months of denied wanting and newfound possibility. His lips were warm and surprisingly soft, moving against mine with increasing urgency. I kissed him back, pouring months of loneliness and hope into it, letting myself feel for the first time since arriving in Seoul. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Taeyang rested his forehead against mine. "I'm going to mess this up sometimes," he said. "My family trained me to be cold, to see relationships as transactions. Unlearning that won't be easy." "Then I'll remind you," I said. "Every time you retreat into ice, I'll pull you back, but you have to promise to let me. No more walls, no more separate wings, no more pretending I don't exist. No more walls," he agreed. "Starting now." He took my hand and led me through the house, past the dining room and living areas, through hallways I'd memorized during lonely months. But instead of going to his wing or mine, he took me to a room I'd never entered, his study. It was dark wood and leather, bookshelves filled with volumes in Korean and English, a massive desk covered with papers and screens. But what caught my attention was the wall behind his desk, covered with photos. Taewon, I realized, his brother. Pictures of them as children, teenagers, young men, always together, always smiling. The Taeyang in those photos looked nothing like the man I'd married. This version was alive, happy, fully present in the moment. "I come here when I need to remember who I was," Taeyang said quietly, "before the responsibility, before the darkness." Taewon was the best of us. Funny, kind, always seeing the good in people. When he died, part of me died too. "Tell me about him," I said, moving closer to study the photos. "Tell me everything." And for the first time since I'd known him, Taeyang opened up. He told me stories about growing up with Taewon, about their adventures and arguments, about how his brother had always protected him, even though Taeyang was older. He talked about the night Taewon died, how they'd been together in a warehouse when enemies attacked, how Taeyang had been powerless to save him. "He made me promise to live," Taeyang said, voice raw. "Not just survive, but actually live. Have love, have family, have joy. I've been failing that promise every day since." "Then let's start keeping it," I said, taking his hand, together. That night, for the first time in our marriage, we had dinner together, real dinner, with conversation and laughter and stories. Taeyang asked about Lagos, about my childhood, about my dreams before this marriage, and when I answered, he listened, really listened, asking follow-up questions and sharing his own experiences. After dinner, we moved to the living room. There was awkwardness. 6 months of distance couldn't disappear immediately, but there was also something new. Hope, maybe. Possibility. "Can I hold you?" Taeyang asked quietly. I need to feel you're real, that this is real." I moved closer on the couch, letting him pull me into his arms. We sat there in the quiet, his chin resting on my head, my ear pressed to his chest where I could hear his heartbeat steady and strong. "This feels right," he murmured, like something I didn't know I was missing until I found it. "Maybe we both needed to find it," I said, "needed to break before we could rebuild." The next few days were tentative but transformative. Taeyang started coming home for dinner every night. He'd find me during the day, in the library, by the pool, in my room, just to check in, to ask how I was, to be present. At night, he'd ask if he could sleep in my room, and we'd lie together, talking until we fell asleep. We hadn't been intimate beyond kissing and holding each other. Both of us seemed to understand that sex would come when we were ready, when the emotional foundation was strong enough. For now, reconnecting was enough. Marcus noticed the change immediately. "You're glowing," he observed during our next training session. "Something good happened." "My husband and I are trying, really trying this time." I couldn't help smiling. "It's complicated, but it's good." "I'm happy for you," Marcus said, and he seemed genuine. Everyone deserves someone who sees them. But not everyone was happy about the change. 2 weeks after Taeyang and I started rebuilding our marriage, everything exploded in violence. If you're loving this story so far, please take 2 seconds to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It helps us reach more viewers and keeps this content coming. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel. I was leaving the gym with Jihoon and the security team when a black van screeched to a stop beside us. The doors flew open and men with masks poured out, guns raised. Jihoon shoved me behind him immediately, returning fire while screaming into his radio for backup. Everything happened in seconds but felt like hours. Gunshots echoed off buildings. Pedestrians scattered, screaming. One of my guards went down, blood blooming across his chest. Jihoon took out 2 attackers, but more kept coming. Then hands grabbed me from behind. I fought, used everything Marcus had taught me, every technique we'd practiced, but there were too many and they were professionals. Something hard hit the back of my head and the world went dark. I woke up in a warehouse that smelled like rust and rot, my hands zip-tied behind my back, my head pounding. The space was massive, filled with shipping containers and shadows. 3 men stood guard, guns visible, faces covered. Fear threatened to swallow me whole, but I forced it down. Panic wouldn't help. I needed to think, to assess, to survive until help came, because Taeyang would come. I knew that with absolute certainty now. He'd felt jealousy over Marcus making me smile. He'd burn the whole city down to find me. "Mrs. Kwon, welcome!" Volkov stepped from the shadows, that same sharp smile from the gala on his face. "I apologize for the dramatic invitation, but your husband has been avoiding my calls." "He's going to kill you for this," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Perhaps, or perhaps he'll negotiate, make concessions, give me what I want in exchange for his pretty wife." Volkov circled me slowly. "Did you know your value just increased dramatically? Rumor is Kwon has finally fallen for you, his cold heart melted by African beauty. How poetic. What do you want? Territory, power, the usual things men like us desire." He shrugged. "Your husband controls markets I want access to. He'll give them to me to get you back." "He won't negotiate with terrorists," I said, hoping I was right. "Then you'll die, and I'll start a war that will destroy the Kwon family completely." Volkov's smile widened. "Either way I win something valuable." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt meaningless in that warehouse. The guards changed shifts. Volkov made phone calls in Russian, his tone increasingly frustrated. Whatever response Taeyang had given, it wasn't the answer Volkov wanted. Then the lights went out. All at once, complete darkness. The guards shouted in confusion, flashlights clicking on. But before they could organize, gunfire erupted from the darkness, silenced shots that were somehow more terrifying than loud ones. Bodies hit the floor. The guards fired blindly, hitting nothing. More shots, more bodies, then silence. Light flooded the warehouse as emergency generators kicked in, and there stood Taeyang, gun in hand, surrounded by 24 armed men from his organization. His eyes found me immediately, and the relief that washed over his face was raw and overwhelming. But Volkov moved fast. He grabbed me, knife appearing at my throat before Taeyang could react. The blade pressed against my skin, sharp and cold. "Drop your weapons," Volkov ordered, voice tight. "All of you, or I open her throat right here." Taeyang's face went blank, not emotionless, but controlled in a way that was somehow more frightening than rage. He lowered his gun slowly, never taking his eyes off me. "Let her go, Volkov. This is between us. This is about respect," Volkov snarled. "About teaching you there are consequences for denying me. Your wife dies unless you give me what I want." "Done," Taeyang said immediately. "Whatever you want, it's yours. Just let her go." The knife pressed harder. I felt blood trickle down my neck. Taeyang's hands clenched at his sides, and I saw murder in his eyes. Not cold calculation, but pure protective rage barely leashed. "Say please," Volkov demanded. "Please." Taeyang's voice broke on the word. "Please don't hurt her. Please let me have her back. I'll give you anything, everything. Just please." Volkov laughed. The mighty Quan Taeyang begging. I should record this. That's when I acted. Marcus had taught me that sometimes survival meant creating opportunities. Not waiting for rescue, I let my body go completely limp. Dead weight in Volkov's arms. He stumbled, grip loosening, and I drove my elbow into his ribs with everything I had. The knife slipped. I felt it cut deeper, felt more blood. But I was free. I dropped and rolled as gunfire exploded. When I looked up, Volkov was on the ground, 3 bullets in his chest, and Taeyang was running toward me. He gathered me into his arms, careful of my throat, his hands shaking as he examined the wound. "Hospital, now! Get medical!" "I'm okay," I whispered, even though I wasn't sure. The cut burned, but it wasn't deep. "I'm okay." "You're bleeding." His voice cracked completely. "You're hurt because of me, because I made enemies, because I brought you into this world, because I didn't protect you properly." "You came for me," I said, cupping his face. Blood from my hands smeared his cheek, but he didn't seem to notice. "You found me. You saved me. I almost lost you." Tears streaked down his face, the first I'd ever seen him cry. "Sophia, I can't lose you. Not now. Not after I finally found what we could be together." Paramedics swarmed around us, but Taeyang wouldn't let me go. He held me in the ambulance, stayed beside me in the hospital while they cleaned and stitched the shallow cut, refused to leave even when doctors said I was fine and should rest. That night, in a private hospital room with armed guards outside, Taeyang lay beside me in the narrow bed, holding me like I might disappear. "I love you," he said into the darkness. "I know it's probably too soon, that I have no right to feel this after how I treated you, but I love you, Sophia, completely, desperately, in a way that terrifies me because now I understand how much I have to lose." My heart swelled. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, the real you, not the Ice King you pretend to be." "No more pretending," he promised. "No more walls. You have all of me now, the good, the broken, the dangerous parts, if you want it." "I want it," I whispered. "I want all of you." He kissed me then, gentle because of my injury, but no less intense. When we broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to mine. "When we go home, I'm moving everything into your wing," he said. "No more separate sides of the house, no more distance. We're together now, in every way." "Together," I agreed. The sun rose through the hospital windows, painting everything gold. And in that light, wrapped in the arms of the man who'd finally learned to love me, I understood something important. Sometimes the best love stories started with ice and silence and had to be broken apart completely before they could rebuild into something real. We weren't a fairy tale. We were 2 damaged people learning to heal together in a world of violence and darkness. But we were choosing each other, fighting for each other, loving each other despite everything that tried to pull us apart. And that was more powerful than any fairy tale could ever be. Recovery took 2 weeks. The physical wound healed quickly. Just a scar on my throat that Taeyang traced with gentle fingers every morning, like he needed proof I was still alive. The psychological wounds took longer, though I tried to hide them. Nightmares plagued me. I'd wake gasping, feeling phantom hands grabbing me, a phantom knife at my throat. But every time Taeyang was there, pulling me against his chest, whispering that I was safe, that he'd never let anyone hurt me again. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said one night after I jolted awake for the 3rd time. "Not with me. Let me carry some of this." So I did. I told him about the fear, about feeling helpless, about the moment I thought I'd die without ever having truly lived. He listened without judgment, held me without trying to fix everything, just offered his presence as comfort. The investigation into Volkov's attack revealed a web of betrayal. Someone inside Taeyang's organization had leaked my schedule, sold information about my movements to enemies. The discovery sent shockwaves through the family, and I watched Taeyang transform into the cold strategist everyone feared as he methodically rooted out the traitor. It was Jung, he told me after 3 days of interrogations. Jung was a mid-level operative who'd been with the organization for years. Volkov promised him territory and money in exchange for information about you. "He's been watching you for months, reporting everything." My stomach turned. What happens to him? Taeyang's eyes were hard. What happens to anyone who threatens my family? "He chose his fate when he put you in danger." I didn't ask for details. Some parts of Taeyang's world I needed to stay separate from, needed to maintain plausible deniability. But I understood that justice in his world was swift and absolute. 3 weeks. After the kidnapping, Taeyang threw away every business suit in his closet and started working from home most days. He claimed it was more efficient, but we both knew the truth. He couldn't bear to be away from me, needed to see me safe with his own eyes. "I'm not fragile," I told him one afternoon, finding him in his study watching security feeds of me reading by the pool. "I won't break if you let me out of your sight." "I know." He minimized the feeds, looking guilty. "But every time I leave, I remember walking into that warehouse, seeing a knife at your throat, thinking I was too late. Give me time to work through it." So I gave him time, understood that his overprotectiveness came from love and fear, not control. And gradually, as weeks passed without incident, he relaxed, stopped checking security feeds obsessively, started trusting that I could leave the house without disaster striking. Mrs. Kim watched our transformation with approval. "I knew you'd be good for him," she told me one morning while helping arrange flowers. Taeyang needed someone strong enough to survive his coldness and patient enough to wait for the thaw. "I almost gave up," I admitted. "If not for Marcus and the gym, I might have. But you didn't. And now look, he's becoming the man his brother always believed he could be. Taewon would be proud." The mention of Taewon gave me an idea. That evening, I asked Taeyang if he'd take me to visit his brother's grave. He looked surprised but agreed immediately. The cemetery was peaceful, tucked into hills overlooking Seoul. Taewon's headstone was elegant black marble, with his name in Korean and English, dates that proved he'd been only 26 when he died. Too young, too full of potential, too loved. Taeyang knelt, placing fresh flowers, his hands shaking slightly. I knelt beside him, taking his hand. Taeyang spoke in Korean, his voice thick. "This is Sophia, my wife. I should have brought her months ago, but I was being stupid. Keeping everyone at distance like that would keep them safe, like loving people was weakness instead of strength." He paused, gathering himself. "You'd like her. She's fierce and kind and patient with me even when I don't deserve it. She makes me want to be better, makes me remember that life is for living, not just surviving. You were right, Hyung, about everything." Tears streamed down my cheeks. Taeyang pulled me close, and we stayed there a long time, grieving together, remembering together, healing together. He was proud of you, I whispered. Wherever he is, he's proud of the man you're becoming. I hope so. Taeyang kissed the top of my head. Because of you, I'm finally keeping my promise to him. To really live. That night, when we got home, everything changed between us. Not suddenly, but like a door finally opening that had been locked too long. We moved through the house together, comfortable in proximity after months of painful distance. In the kitchen, making tea, Taeyang would stand behind me, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. In the library, reading separate books, we'd sit tangled together on the couch. In bed, we'd talk until late, sharing stories and dreams and fears we'd never voiced before. Tell me something no one else knows, I said one night, tracing patterns on his chest in the darkness. I wanted to kiss you on our wedding day, he admitted. Really kiss you, not that pathetic peck I gave you. But I was afraid if I let myself feel anything, I'd completely lose control. I'd spent 6 months being numb, and I thought that was survival. Turns out it was just slow death. Tell me something else. Every time you cooked for me, left those dishes in my study, I wanted to find you and say thank you, wanted to ask what you'd made, why you'd chosen it, if you'd like to cook together sometime. But I'd convinced myself keeping distance was kindness, that not giving you false hope was merciful. He laughed bitterly. I was an idiot. You were grieving, I corrected, and scared. Those are different from being an idiot. Maybe, but I still hurt you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. I shifted to look at his face in the moonlight streaming through the windows. You know what I wanted on our wedding day? What? I wanted you to look at me like I mattered, like I was more than a business transaction. Even just once, I wanted to see something in your eyes that suggested you saw me as a person. I smiled. Now you look at me like that all the time, and it's better than anything I imagined. Taeyang cupped my face gently. I see you, Sophia, all of you, the strength and the vulnerability, the fire and the softness, and I love every part. He kissed me then, slow and deep. And for the first time, I felt no hesitation from either of us. No walls, no guards, no fear. Just two people finally allowing themselves to be completely present with each other. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with wanting. Can I make love to you? My breath caught. We'd been building to this for weeks, the touches growing longer, the kisses deeper, the nights spent tangled together testing our restraint. But this was different. This was permission, question, respect. Yes, I whispered, please. What followed was gentle and intense, passionate and tender. Taeyang treated me like something precious, learning my body with careful attention, asking what I liked, paying attention to every sound I made. And when we finally came together, it felt like the final wall crumbling, the last distance closing, two separate people becoming genuinely connected. Afterward, we lay in the tangled sheets, sweaty and breathless and smiling. Taeyang traced the scar on my throat with infinite gentleness. I failed to protect you once, he said quietly. I won't fail again. You didn't fail. You saved me. After you'd already been taken, after someone had hurt you. That's failure in my book. I turned to face him fully. Listen to me. Bad things happened because bad people exist, not because you failed. You came for me. You found me. You got me out alive. That's what matters. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'm working on letting go of guilt. It's harder than it should be. We'll work on it together, I said. That's what partners do. The word partners made him smile. I like that. Not just husband and wife, but partners, equals. Exactly, though I'm clearly the smarter, better-looking, more charming one, he laughed, pulling me on top of him. Definitely the more humble one. We made love again, playful this time, laughing and teasing between kisses. And afterward, falling asleep wrapped around each other. I felt something I hadn't felt since arriving in Seoul, complete happiness. The next morning, I woke to find Taeyang already up, standing by the window in just his boxer briefs, speaking rapid Korean into his phone. His tone was sharp, business mode, fully engaged. When he noticed me watching, his expression softened immediately. "I need to handle something at the office," he said, after ending the call. "Should take a few hours. Will you be okay?" "I survived 6 months of you ignoring me," I teased. "I can handle a few hours alone." He crossed to the bed, kissing me thoroughly. "That's not funny. I'm never ignoring you again." "Good. Now go handle business so you can come back and not handle business." He laughed, getting dressed in the casual slacks and button-down that had replaced his suits. Before leaving, he kissed me again, then again, like he couldn't quite make himself go. "Taeyang," I said, amused. "I'll be here when you get back, I promise." "I know, I just don't like leaving you. Healthy marriages require some separation. We can't spend every second together." Watch me try. But he finally left, and I heard his car pull away 15 minutes later. I spent the morning in comfortable solitude, reading, taking a long bath, planning a menu for dinner I wanted to cook for us. Around noon, Marcus texted asking if I was coming to the gym. I hadn't trained in 2 weeks, focused on recovery and reconnecting with Taeyang. "I should come back," I texted. "I'm getting soft." Marcus replied immediately, "You've been through trauma. Take the time you need. But we miss you here." The simple message made me emotional. I'd been so focused on Taeyang that I'd neglected the other relationships I'd built. Marcus had been my friend when I had none, had given me purpose when I'd felt purposeless. He deserved better than to be ghosted just because my marriage finally worked. "I'll come in tomorrow," I promised, "and bring Taeyang to meet you properly." The idea of my husband meeting my trainer friend made me nervous and excited at the same time. These were 2 parts of my life that hadn't intersected yet. 2 pieces I needed to integrate. Around 2 o'clock, Jihoon knocked on my door. "Mrs. Kwon, you have a visitor." Kwon, Taeyang's mother. My stomach dropped. I'd only met my mother-in-law twice since the wedding, once at the ceremony and once at a stiff family dinner. Both times she'd been polite but distant, treating me like an acceptable business arrangement rather than a daughter-in-law. "Please show her to the sitting room," I said. "I'll be down in a moment." I changed quickly into something more appropriate, fixing my hair and makeup, trying to look like a proper wife instead of someone who'd spent the morning in pajamas. When I entered the sitting room, Taeyang's mother was standing by the window, elegant as always in a tailored dress and pearls. "Mrs. Kwon," I bowed respectfully, "this is a pleasant surprise." "Sophia," she turned to study me, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "You look well? Recovered from your ordeal?" "Yes, thank you." She gestured for me to sit, and I did, feeling like I was about to be evaluated. Mrs. Kim brought tea, setting it between us with a sympathetic look, before disappearing. "I came to apologize," Taeyang's mother said, shocking me completely. "And to thank you. I don't understand. I arranged your marriage for business reasons. I chose you because you were beautiful, educated, from a powerful family, and I thought you'd be manageable, a decorative wife who'd give us access to African markets without demanding emotional connection from my son." She sipped her tea. "I failed to see you as a person with needs and feelings. For that, I apologize." I didn't know what to say. This was the last conversation I'd expected. "As for the thanks," she continued, "you've given me back my son, the real Taeyang, not the cold shell he became after Taewon died. I watched him shut down for months, focused only on revenge and business, losing himself completely. Then you came into his life and slowly, painfully, he started waking up again. He's the one who did the work," I said. "I just gave him reason to try. Don't diminish your role. Taeyang is alive again because of you." He smiles, laughs, shows emotion. "He's becoming the man his brother always believed he could be." She set down her tea. "When I heard what happened, the kidnapping, seeing you hurt, I watched him transform. The fear in his eyes, the desperation, the love. That's when I knew I'd been wrong about everything. Wrong how? I thought love was weakness in this world, that emotional attachments made us vulnerable, gave enemies weapons to use against us. But watching Taeyang fight for you, Seeing how your love gives him strength rather than taking it away, I understand now that I was wrong. Love is what makes us human, what gives us purpose beyond just power and survival. My throat tightened with emotion. Thank you for saying that. There's something else. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. This belonged to Taewon. He would have wanted you to have it. I opened the box to find a delicate gold bracelet with a small charm, the Korean, character for family. It's beautiful. Taewon believed family was everything, not just blood, but chosen family, people who'd fight for you, die for you, love you unconditionally. He gave that to me before he died, said to pass it to someone who understood what it meant. She helped me put it on. Your family now, Sophia. Truly family, and we take care of our own. After she left, I sat in the sitting room for a long time, touching the bracelet, feeling its weight. I'd arrived in Seoul thinking I'd never belong, that I'd always be an outsider in this world, but slowly, piece by piece, I'd built something real, not just with Taeyang, but with his family, his world, his people. When Taeyang came home that evening, I was cooking in the kitchen, traditional Nigerian jollof rice with Korean side dishes, fusion food that represented both of us. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, kissing my neck. Smells amazing, he murmured. What's the occasion? Your mother came by. He tensed. Is everything okay? Better than okay. We had a real conversation. She apologized for treating me like a transaction and said, I'm family now. Then she gave me this. I showed him the bracelet. Taeyang's eyes widened. That was Taewon's. He never took it off. She said he'd want me to have it, that I understand what family means. He turned me to face him, eyes bright with emotion. You do. You've created family here, with me, with the staff, even with my mother. You've taken this cold house and made it a home. We did it together, I corrected. You let me in. That was the hard part. Best decision I ever made. He kissed me softly. Well, second best. The actual best decision was going to that warehouse to get you back. I thought not running away when you saw me with Marcus was the best decision. He laughed. That triggered everything. Seeing you happy with someone else made me realize what an absolute fool I'd been. Jealousy woke me up to what I was, losing. Thank goodness for jealousy then, I teased. Otherwise, you might still be sleeping in the West Wing. Never again. You're stuck with me now, in every room, every moment, for the rest of our lives. Promise? Promise. The next day, I returned to the gym, bringing Taeyang with me. Marcus's face when we walked in was priceless. Shock, then understanding, then a warm smile. Mr. Kwon, he extended his hand. Marcus Silver, I've heard a lot about you. Taeyang shook his hand, and I could see him evaluating Marcus. Threat assessment, rival consideration, all the paranoid instincts of someone in his position. But then he seemed to consciously relax, his grip friendly rather than challenging. Thank you for looking after my wife when I was too stupid to do it myself, Taeyang said. She tells me you're an excellent trainer. She's an excellent student, strong, disciplined, not afraid to get hit. Marcus grinned at me. Though I expect you won't be as desperate to hit things now that your home life has improved. Actually, I said, I think I'll keep training. Turns out I like being strong, like knowing I can defend myself. What happened with Volkov taught me that I can't rely on rescue. I need to be able to fight my own battles. Taeyang looked proud. Then I'll train with you. We'll both get stronger together. We spent 2 hours at the gym, Marcus pushing us through drills while Taeyang displayed fighting skills I'd never seen. He was lethal and controlled, every movement precise and efficient. But what struck me most was seeing him out of his element, sweating and struggling like a normal person, laughing when he messed up a combination. You're not bad for a crime lord, Marcus observed after a particularly intense round, though Sophia still has better footwork. She's better than me at most things, Taeyang agreed easily, making me glow with pride. After the workout, The three of us had lunch at a nearby cafe. It was strange and wonderful. My husband and my friend, two parts of my life merging into something comfortable. Marcus told stories about South Africa, about his family and his journey to Korea. Taeyang shared carefully edited stories about his legitimate business ventures, keeping the criminal elements hidden, but showing glimpses of who he really was. "You're good for her," Marcus said to Taeyang as we were leaving. "Much better than the Ice King version she described months ago." "I'm trying to be," Taeyang said seriously. "She deserves better than what I gave her at the beginning. She deserves the world. Make sure you remember that. Every single day." That evening, as we drove home, Taeyang was quiet. When we got back to the mansion, he pulled me into his study instead of letting me go change. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling up files on his computer. "These are my legitimate holdings, real estate, investments, technology ventures, nothing to do with the organization's darker operations." I studied the documents, seeing millions in assets spread across multiple countries. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to understand something. When Taewon died, I took over responsibilities I never wanted. The criminal operations, the violence, the darkness. That was his world, and I inherited it. But I've been building something else alongside it. Something clean, something I can eventually transition to completely." My heart raced. "You want to leave?" "Eventually. Not immediately. Too many people depend on the organization's protection. Too many promises to honor. But yes, in time, I want to legitimize everything, build something better than what my family created, something our children won't have to inherit, with blood on it." "Children?" I whispered. He pulled me onto his lap, hands settling on my waist. "Is that something you'd want? Eventually, when we're ready. Kids running around this house, filling it with noise and chaos and joy." "I want everything with you," I said, kissing him. "Kids, a future, growing old together, all of it." "Then that's what we'll build. Together." Over the next few months, life settled into a rhythm I never could have imagined during those lonely first months. Taeyang and I became true partners, in business, in life, in everything. He started teaching me about his world. Not the violence, but the strategy, the alliances, the complex web of relationships that kept the organization running. "You're a natural," he said one evening after I'd helped negotiate a difficult contract. "You see angles I miss, understand people's motivations better than I do." "Maybe because I spent 6 months learning to read people," I said. "When your husband ignores you, you get good at interpreting silence." He winced. "I'm never living that down, am I?" "Never," I confirmed cheerfully, "but you can spend the rest of your life making up for it." Challenge accepted, and he did. Every day was a small gift, morning coffee exactly how I liked it, flowers without occasion, random texts during the day just to say he was thinking about me. He listened when I talked about my work, my dreams, my fears. He held me through nightmares that still occasionally surfaced. He protected me without smothering me, loved me without consuming me. We travelled together, back to Lagos, where my family welcomed him with open arms and teasing about finally showing up. To Ghana, to explore my roots. To Japan and Thailand and places neither of us had been. Every trip was an adventure, every moment together strengthening what we'd built. The nightmares about the kidnapping faded gradually. The scar on my throat became just another part of my story, not something that defined me. And Taeyang stopped watching security feeds obsessively, trusting that I was strong enough to take care of myself, while knowing he'd always have my back. 1 year after our wedding, Taeyang planned a surprise. He told me to dress formally, but wouldn't say why. When we arrived at our destination, I realised he'd rented out the entire museum where we'd first talked, really talked, after months of silence. "Why are we here?" I asked, as he led me through empty galleries. "Because this is where I first understood I was falling for you," he said. "That night, after seeing you with Marcus, after confronting you about it, I came here to think. Walked these halls until sunrise, trying to understand what I was feeling, and I realised it was love. terrifying, consuming, life-altering love. He led me to a specific painting, an abstract piece with bold strokes of black and gold. I stood in front of this for hours. It's called Breaking Through. The artist said it represents the moment fear shatters and courage emerges. That's what loving you felt like. Breaking through fear to find courage on the other side. Tears streamed down my face. Taeyang. He got down on one knee, pulling out a small box. I know we're already married, but I want to do this right. Want to ask you properly the way you deserved from the beginning. Inside the box was a ring, not the one his family had chosen, but something new. A black diamond surrounded by small emeralds, unique and stunning and so perfectly me. Sophia Mensa Kwon, he said, voice shaking slightly. Will you marry me again, not for business or family or strategy, but because I love you with everything I am, because you're my partner, my home, my heart, because I can't imagine any future that doesn't have you in it. Yes, I sobbed, dropping to my knees to kiss him. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, then held me as we knelt together in the empty museum, crying and laughing and kissing. When we finally pulled apart, he cupped my face gently. I want to do it differently this time, he said. Small ceremony, just people who matter, a celebration of love, not politics. Can we do that? We can do anything we want. It's our life now. 3 months later, we married again. This time on a beach in Ghana, with sand under our feet and ocean wind in our hair. My parents were there, Taeyang's mother, Marcus, the Jim family, Mrs. Kim, and the household staff who'd become our family. Just 30 people who genuinely loved us. Taeyang wore traditional Ghanaian cloth, looking absurdly handsome and slightly uncomfortable in the unfamiliar garment. I wore a dress that mixed Korean and African styles, white silk with Ankara print accents, my natural hair crowned with flowers. When we exchanged vows, Taeyang spoke from his heart. No script, no formality, just raw truth. Sophia, I was dead before I met you, walking, breathing, but not living. You brought me back to life, gave me purpose beyond just survival. You're the bravest person I know, brave enough to fight for us when I'd given up, brave enough to forgive me when I didn't deserve it, brave enough to love me despite everything. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that love. I couldn't stop crying as I said my vows. Taeyang, you taught me that sometimes the best things come after the worst heartbreak, that walls can be torn down and rebuilt as bridges, that love isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about choosing each other every day despite the imperfections. I choose you today and every day after, forever. When we kissed, the small crowd cheered, but all I heard was Taeyang whispering against my lips, I love you. I'll love you forever. The reception was joy incarnate, African music mixed with K-pop, fusion food that made everyone's eyes water from spice, dancing until our feet hurt. Taeyang learned traditional dances badly, making everyone laugh, and I attempted to keep up with Korean drinking games, earning respect from his mother's side of the family. Your husband is terrible at dancing, Marcus observed, watching Taeyang enthusiastically fail at following the steps. But he's trying, I said, loving him even more for it. That's what matters. That night, in a beachside bungalow, Taeyang carried me over the threshold. The first time we'd done that tradition. Inside, he set me down gently, then pulled me close. This is what our wedding night should have been, he said. Not cold distance, but real connection. Not obligation, but choice. We have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time, I said, pulling him toward the bed. Starting now, we made love with the sound of waves in the background. taking our time, savouring every touch and kiss and whispered word, and afterward, lying tangled in sheets, Taeyang traced the scar on my throat that had faded to a thin silver line. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly, coming to Seoul, marrying me, surviving all the darkness. "Never," I said firmly. "Not for 1 second. Everything we went through brought us here, made us who we are. Even those first 6 months. Especially those, they taught me I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive loneliness and heartbreak and still come out fighting, and they taught you that love is worth the risk." "It is." He kissed me softly. "You're worth every risk." 2 years after our real wedding, I found out I was pregnant. The test showed positive on a random Tuesday morning, and I stared at it for 10 minutes, heart racing, mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts at once. When Taeyang came home that evening, I was pacing the bedroom, trying to figure out how to tell him. He took one look at my face, and his expression turned to concern. "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Is someone threatening you?" "I'm pregnant," I blurted, then burst into tears. For a second, he just stared. Then his face transformed with pure joy. He swept me into his arms, spinning us around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We're having a baby? Really? Really? I'm terrified. What if we're not ready? What if we mess up? What if—" He kissed me quiet. "We'll figure it out together. Like everything else. Your world is so dangerous. How do we raise a child in all this?" "We're already changing that world," he reminded me. "The legitimate businesses are growing. In a few more years, we'll be completely clean. Our child will grow up with opportunity, not obligation, with love, not darkness." Over the next months, watching my body change, Taeyang became even more protective. He hired additional security, limited his direct involvement in dangerous operations, and started seriously accelerating his plans to legitimize everything. "I want to be here," he said one night, hand on my growing belly. "Not just alive, but present. I want to see our child's first steps, hear their first words, be at every birthday and school event. I can't do that if I'm constantly in danger." "Are your parents okay with this transition?" "My mother supports it. Said Taewon would have wanted this too, for the family to eventually leave the darkness behind. It won't be immediate, but we're on the path." Our daughter was born on a spring morning, tiny and perfect and screaming. When they placed her in my arms, I understood love in a completely new dimension, and watching Taeyang hold her for the first time, seeing tears stream down his face as he stared at our baby with absolute awe, that moment was everything. "She's perfect," he whispered. "So small and perfect and ours." "What should we name her?" We'd discussed names for months without deciding, but looking at our daughter, Taeyang smiled. "Taehi," he said. "It means wisdom and grace. And her middle name should be Adaeze, Nigerian princess. She's both of us, both cultures, both worlds united." "Taehi Adaeze Kwon," I said, testing it. "It's perfect." Taehi was 3 months old when Taeyang made his final move. He called a meeting of all the major players in his organization and announced his plans to step back from leadership. He'd fulfill existing obligations, but would no longer take on new ones. Over the next 5 years, he'd transition everything to legitimate operations or dissolve them completely. There was resistance, of course. Some saw it as weakness, betrayal. But Taeyang stood firm, and with his mother's support, the family backed the decision. The Kwon organization would become the Kwon Corporation, criminal empire transformed into legitimate business powerhouse. "Are you sure about this?" I asked that night as we watched Taehi sleep in her crib. "You're giving up so much power." "I'm gaining something better," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Peace. Safety, a real future for our family. That's worth more than any amount of criminal power." As Taehi grew, we gave her everything we'd both needed as children: unconditional love, freedom to choose her own path, protection without suffocation. She learned both Korean and English from birth, spent summers in Ghana with my family, and winters in Seoul with Taeyangs. She grew up knowing both her cultures were equally important, equally celebrated. On our 5th wedding anniversary, not the arranged one, but the beach wedding, we stood on our balcony overlooking Seoul. Tae was napping inside, and we had a rare moment of peace. 5 years since we really began, Taeyang said, pulling me close. Best 5 years of my life, even including the kidnapping and the violence and the nightmares, even including all of that, because it gave us this real partnership, real love, real family. Everything I thought was impossible. I leaned into him, watching the sun set over the city. Do you ever think about those first 6 months, how different we were? All the time. I remember the man I was, cold, broken, convinced love was weakness. Then I remember seeing you with Marcus and feeling jealous for the first time in years. That jealousy was the beginning of everything. Jealousy woke you up, I said, echoing the words from so long ago. It did. Made me realize what I was losing through my own stubbornness. Made me understand that you weren't just a business arrangement. You were a person I was falling for, hard and fast and terrifying. And now I'm completely, hopelessly, permanently in love with you. The kind of love that's not about possession or control, but about partnership and respect and choosing each other every day. Inside, we heard Tae starting to wake up, her little voice calling for us. Taeyang kissed me once more. Then we went inside together to get our daughter. This was what we'd built from ice and silence and jealousy. A real family, a real love, a real life. Not perfect, never perfect, but genuine and hard-fought and absolutely worth it. Years later, when people asked how we made our marriage work, we always told the truth. We nearly destroyed it before we built it. We started with every disadvantage, arranged marriage, emotional distance, trauma and grief. But we fought for each other, chose each other, and turned something cold and transactional into something warm and real. Sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at all. Sometimes they start with ice and business and separate wings of a mansion. Sometimes they start with jealousy, waking up a man who'd been emotionally dead for months. Sometimes they start wrong and have to be completely rebuilt before they can become right. But when you get to the other side, when you're standing with the person who saw you at your worst and chose you anyway, when you've built something real from broken pieces, that's more powerful than any perfect beginning could ever be. This was our story. Not a fairy tale, but something better, something real. And every day we chose it all over again. The end. Thank you for watching till the very end. You are the best. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more Afro-Korean romance content. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from.